Hello, Internet. I'm Jackie Fox, and over the last month or so, as you can probably tell from a lot of my recent videos, I have taken a little bit of time off to play a lot of Power World, and that's the last reference to Power World we're probably going to hear in this video. In that month, a number of characters have been released, and unlike usual, I haven't made any content for them yet, except for Veritas of the Waters, and honestly, she's getting her own video. This is going to be a longer video than usual. There are a total of 7 characters. I forgot, one of them wasn't released on JP. There are a total of 7 characters that I'm going to be talking about in this episode. That's quite a bit. And just to give you a little bit of an overview about how I feel about them, my favorite, well, first of all, my favorite might be Veritas of the Waters in a lot of ways, but I'm giving her her own video. Katone is really cool to me, and I actually think 2P might be pretty cool. I just don't want to pull for her necessarily. Lucio also seems like he could be pretty good, and Dario I'm not as sure about, but he also looks like he might be quite powerful. Unfortunately, the ones that I didn't like as much, Fang, I didn't expect to like her, and she really didn't do anything that made me especially excited. And wow, I'm glad we already have a UR Shadow Links, because this one just ain't it. Like, you know, I've talked a lot of shit about 70 cost units, but this really feels like a 70 cost unit in a way that even her counterpart, 70 cost unit Katone, just doesn't. So, woof. So, with all that being said, I'm about to start the video, so grab yourself some popcorn. It's gonna be a long one. Dig in, put your headphones on, do whatever you gotta do, get yourself comfortable, put a pillow behind your back, and we'll get started. Also, it's not just gonna be about the units that you see on screen. There's also new future units that are coming from the JP side. And, well, people who are paying attention to another story right now have probably noticed a pretty big spoiler on screen. I managed to miss it in the JP coverage, A, because I wasn't paying the most attention by the time that Katone came out, but also because they didn't have a direct translation, and her global name is just such a big spoiler. And the spoilers are only gonna get bigger in terms of another story. I want to start with 2P and Oberon, because these being limited characters, the time for them being low, if you haven't already pulled them, probably not a good time, because you don't have much time to build them left. And if you're seeing this video in the near future, you may not have any time at all. What I do want to say, though, is that 2P is a machine, which means that Human Killer doesn't apply to her. That is a helpful little bonus for the android units. She is seemingly an evasive type of... I'm seeing some kind of big DPS-y. The movement and agility is pretty cool. Thief's Lore is always nice to see. Definitely some pretty cool skills. The perfect evasion as a counter to slash and strike damage is pretty cool. Although, actually, with only a 20% proc rate, I'm not actually sure how cool this is. Compared to some of the other androids' evasions. I don't know. But we're getting a striker here with Lightning Killer, so definitely one that really punishes lightning. I also think that most likely this is a very good character to run with Alaya the Alabaster instead of just against her. I mean, if you can't, even if you can beat them, maybe you should join them. This would make your Elia the Alabaster team, for instance, a lot more resistant to other Elia the Alabaster teams. Also, decreasing single target resistance is a pretty cool, or increasing single target resistance, also decreasing AoE resistance, sorry, is a really cool thing to be able to do there. Seems pretty cool. I gotta say, I don't dislike her kit, but like, I didn't play Reincarnation, or Near Reincarnation, was that? Oh wow. Yeah, they did call it that, didn't they? I didn't play that, so like I have no nostalgia for this character. So while there was something that made me want to pull for A2, even though like conceptually, I think I did try some lucky pulls for her on my Earth and Strike accounts, but like I didn't even really want to pull her on it. It was just like, you know, she would be a cool character if I did luck out and get her for a couple thousand. On the other hand, Oberon the Auspicious is a mainly slash unit. He does have Dragoon, so he can bring in some piercing, so he can work with his other iterations. He seems to have a really good DPS passive here, increasing his agility, increasing his defense penetration / attack resistance penetration. Getting both of these at 40 on the same skill is very powerful. Also, any agility increase is very powerful. Decrease AP consumption is just a really good thing to put on there. This is a really good passive. I don't see a lot else that's super good, though. I'm not sure what his second passive would be. Like, maybe Tidings of the Fortuitous / resistance, magic resistance. I guess that's pretty good, but Blessed Dragon's Blade's pretty cool. So better chance of countering damage. It is a slash attack, so it's going to benefit from some of that stuff. It has a higher modifier, so it's going to do a bit more damage. Although it's probably going to absorb just a little bit less. So higher damage, less absorption, but much higher range than Dragon's Blade. I do actually really like Dragon's Blade, or I did at least in the older era of like weaker counters. This was a really good one. But I think that Blessed Dragon's Blade is just a really good upgrade on that. Casting another attack skill, also launch the following attack on target Draconic Slash for 1 turn for self. For 1 turn? So you get 1 follow-up damage on your next skill. I mean, at least the range is great. Although I guess you would only be able to do it based on the range of your other skill. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm not really going to talk about this guy either. I just kind of wanted to take a brief look at his kit. Oh, this gets upgraded twice. Decrease AoE resistance, amazing. Especially in that pattern. Dispel all debuffs for self. Dispel physical damage, magical damage reductions for self. Then deals damage. Not a huge modifier, but it is in a big AoE, so it's gonna hit pretty hard for what it is, especially with the AoE resistance down for 30%. That's really gonna help with that quite a bit. Blessed Dragon's Auspices. Decrease slash resistance, penetration, decrease magic resistance penetration. It's going to line up, this skill actually lines up pretty well with the passive, which actually, you know what, that is definitely his second passive. Also, it's going to increase slash and magic resistance for an ally, which is also kind of going to bring an ally in on that passive. This could be good at dealing with slash or magic teams specifically. It's interesting, especially like teams that kind of blur the line in between those. The thing is, and I have one of my sources that I talk to who does a lot more high level play and a lot more high level arena than I do. Also, I think maybe puts a little bit more money into this game than I do as well. Given kind of where they are and some of the stuff that they tend to have and how quickly they tend to get it built. But she managed to get this guy really high in arena, but you know, when I asked her for like comment on like what she thought of him, she's like, meh. I mean, really, it was like pulling teeth, trying to get like any sort of a positive soundbite for this guy, despite the fact that she had got him up there. So I don't know if this is like, there's definitely some promise here. Some people are gonna have fun with him, but I'm not a fire player, so this really wasn't a thing for me from the beginning here. So Lucio, Light of Brilliance. So the next 4 characters that we're going to be talking about are all from another story. And again, it's kind of hard not to do some basic spoilers here. But Lucio is going to be getting himself an upgrade, finally going all the way to 100%, or 100 cost. He's going to be a Pugilist sub, Strider sub, love those sub jobs, Warrior of Luminescence. New mantle just dropped. 40% defense penetration for allies. That's a very interesting effect. I actually think, I'm trying to remember if that's better than Sephiroth's coat, which also offers attack, but I think the defense penetration here might be higher. This is at least on par with the Oldoan Apron, which was a very classic and still quite powerful way to get defense penetration onto your character, but also to get a little bit of AP regeneration. But this is also going to give debuff effect weakening, 30% for self. And it's okay. That part I'm not as excited about, but getting this on up to 5, realistically 3 characters, pretty cool. Wow. That's a lot of upgrades. That's a lot of skill upgrades for a Dream Awakening. Well, I'm definitely seeing like some good, this is good defense, but everything else seems really, really strongly offensive. He is going to be a bruiser. And you can kind of see that from his sub-jobs as well, and he's kind of lost the paladin side. So this isn't going to be the demi-tanked Lucio. This is going to be full brawler DPS, hopefully. So, Glint Duality Strike. Upgrades Dual Glint Strike, Dual Glint Strike. I guess one of those is the upgraded version of itself. Increased defense penetration 40, increased strike resistance 12, increased missile resistance 12. Okay. It is, I guess I'll have to see the skill upgrades, but it is nice to see defense penetration there. I'm not sure how I feel about the resistances. This is kind of like how I felt with Oberon. I'm not sure how much stock I put into those resistances anymore, given that a lot of people negate the resistance they deal damage in. That being said, strike and missile are probably the 2 types, if not pierce, that have the fewest penetrations. Strike really hasn't needed penetrations. So, especially the strike 12% is pretty cool. I think the missile resistance, though, is probably also pretty decent. This is probably one of the skills that you want to put on him. Power to Protect Life is upgraded to Power to Protect Worlds. Single target resistance 15. That's going to pair very nicely with the AoE resistance we saw in the Master ability. 12% all elemental resistance. This is Sephiroth-like, actually. You know, Sephiroth had a very strong ability to resist all elements. And this is going to be a great iteration of that. That's going to give him, you know, both of these add up to being really, really good at, especially when you combine them with the AoE resistance. And just giving you general damage mitigation at kind of a low level. This is going to make him a lot beefier. But in addition to that, it's going to increase slash attack resistance penetration by 40. So you can combine this with Glint Duality Strike to give yourself defense penetration and strike attack resistance penetration of 40 both. But on top of all of that, you're going to get an increase to your physical damage of 10%. So that's amazing. That is just, between the two of those, that's a really, really strong DPS package that also basically has a hidden but very strong defensive streak to it as well. This is a really balanced offense and defensive package between these two passives. But we could stack in more defense penetration if we wanted to. Also, alternatively, if you wanted to go with Glint Duality Pierce, that's going to do a lot of the same things as Glint Duality Strike. However, it's going to change the skills that it upgrades to the piercing skills as opposed to the striking skills. And instead of giving you strike and missile resistance of 12, it's going to give you pierce and magic resistance of 12. I think pierce is probably, other than maybe strike, but maybe even more so than strike, the best possible damage type to have resistance to, because the penetrations, in my recollection, just aren't there at all. There's maybe one or two characters that have strike resistance penetration or strike resistance decreasing skills. But there's probably only like maybe one that has pierce resistance penetration or pierce penetrating skills. So I think that the pierce resistance is even stronger. However, on the opposite side of that, the magic resistance is so bad. So very bad. The only thing that could probably be worse than magic resistance actually is the fifth one that isn't included, which is slash resistance. So I guess it's good that we didn't see that, but in terms of resistances, these are probably overall a little bit weaker than Glint Duality Strike, but it is also a pretty powerful alternative. And if you, the power to protect worlds is a really good package. I like that quite a bit, but you could run both of the Glint dualities together and just get a whole bunch of resistances, 80% defense penetration, and 4 upgraded skills. They're 2 upgraded skills that themselves get upgraded, but they don't change the name apparently. Flurry counter, warrior spirit, no. Sorry, but no. Natural instincts also, that is another way to get yourself defense penetration, but there's already 2 very good passives here that offer defense penetration, and I think the accuracy 25 just doesn't quite keep up with what the Glint dualities do. So yeah, I think I only really, you want power to protect worlds and one of the Glint dualities, maybe both Glint dualities depending on how you build him. But I really think power to protect worlds is the best here. Healing scintillation. Oh, that's very good. It counters magic and slash damage, the 2 most common damage types, 60% at any range, anything, because the range isn't really applied to the opponent. It is applied to yourself, and you are always standing in the square you're standing in, so this is always going to proc, or at least 60% of the time. And it's going to increase your HP by 10% and your AP by 10. That's pretty good. There is actually a skill in Lucio's original kit that he had to cast. And this, I would say, is better. Danger Sense is okay defensively. Again, it works at theoretically any range. However, much less likely chance to proc. Like 3 times less likely to proc is pretty unfortunate for it. Also, Flurry Counter. You have to get the upgraded version, you have to run the Flurry passive, which is just not a thing that you're going to do with this Lucio, so yeah. Okay, Refraction Blade. Select up to 2 targets. Holy shit, this guy's good. Whoa, dispel auto revive for target. 125 mod. 121 mod. Wow. This guy is going hard out the gate. God. This has good range. It has very good AP usage. Select up to 2 targets is always great. I mean, it's not very powerful. You are pinging them, but being able to hit 2 people with the spell auto revive for 17 AP is just I'm sad. I'm a little bit sad right now that I don't have my camera on for this. You'd see how big I'm smiling at the look of Refraction Blade. This is nuts. I like it. Prismatic Armor's up next. That's going to increase physical distance-based damage by 10. Max range 4, minimum range 4. So anything closer than that won't reduce. Max range 7 for 3 turns for self. Increase, same for magic. Although I think there's going to be a lot less characters that are going to be able to do this from that distance. Although at the same time, there's probably enough magic casters that have really wide range AoEs that might actually increase their range enough to proc this more reliably. And really, like, a range of 4 isn't that far. This hits things that 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I guess technically Refraction Blade wouldn't trigger this. But I'm just thinking about like Gunners and Alaya the Alabaster just having ridiculous range with some of her skills. Both of them are physical, so that's gonna be pretty good. There might be Gunners that can like outshoot this though, but I think that's probably pretty unlikely and not a thing that's going to come up. But I don't know how I feel about this. However, on the other hand, especially with a lot of the things that this guy's already got in terms of elemental resistance, to further increase that by 15% is pretty good. And increasing your attack by 40% is pretty good as well. So Prismatic Armor, I mean, honestly, I'm expecting a lot from buffs like this these days. I guess this one doesn't get upgraded, but it's okay. It's okay. It's pretty good, but it's okay. Fatal Aurora. Dispel, ignore fatal damage. Okay, so this guy can remove re-raise and courage. 200% mod. Also pretty short range. Very short range. When enemy target is killed, automatically cast another skill for self. Recovers HP when enemy is KO'd. Nice. You could have just did we need this whole line? Did we? Luminescent Ward. Increase single target resistance 20, 3 turns for allies. Increase elemental chain resistance 40, 3 turns for allies. If that's not enough. Oh, he can't be at the center of this, but he will always be on the edge of it. Restore AP 20 for self. Reduce physical and magical damage 15% for self. Grants the following effects upon hit for self. Dispel all buffs, dispel haste, dispel plus physical damage plus magical damage for 3 turns. So, he will be able to, upon any hit for 3 turns after this, apply all of the effects of like Slate Wiper that we were looking at earlier, without the condition that it has to be a critical hit, although I'm sure this guy's no slouch at getting crits. That alone is kind of ridiculous. Yeah, that's nutty all by itself. But you're also going to be getting all of this just for Lucio. And look, even if it was just something like this for allies, that would be great. Okay, this skill had me real early on. This, by the way, this is what I wish Prismatic Armor was. Oh my god, all of the dual ones are select up to 2 targets. Almost all of this guy's kit is select up to 2 targets. This is fucking ridiculous. Dual glint slash breaks physical barriers. So does dual glint strike. That gets upgraded to a 200% mod instead of 165. Also recovers AP when an enemy is KO'd. You're going to be getting this with the glint strike passive. And yeah, so it looks like for all of these, they're just going to be different damage types, basically giving him access to all of the physical damage types. And anytime that one of these skills gets upgraded, it's going to go from a 165 mod to a 200% mod that will additionally recover AP. Yeah, it's AP for all these. I was kind of expecting it to be HP, but I guess that was Fatal Aurora. So all of the dual glint abilities are going to recover AP when an enemy is KO'd. And man, the way that thing hits, I think that might be kind of pretty likely, which is going to feed him into the next dual glint attack. Wow, that's incredible. That doesn't take up a big wall of his kit though. So finally, there's Blade of Luminosity. That's his job level 25, increased defense penetration 40, 200% damage. AoE is okay. It's okay. That's okay. Look, I've been so impressed by certain parts of this boy's kit that not everything has to be a banger for me to still think this is good. Select up to 2 targets, 25% chance for stun. Light resistance, dark resistance, 15. Pretty big area of effect though. Dark killer, 20. Also for allies. So this seems like it would be a really, really, really good buff to be running on your team if you're hunting things like the Helena BB Roth combo. He also has re-raise removal, which is going to help him deal with that combo. Strider is one of my favorite sub-jobs, though. It's hard to compete with that. Spirit Ward is attack 40, Spirit 25 for allies. It's pretty good. It's definitely not what it used to be, but it applies pretty decent buffs to all of them. It's not like applying a buff to all of them and then applying a buff to you specifically. Nope, everybody gets all of it. That's alright. The inverse of that, though, is going to be Call of the Wild, which works like I was just saying. It has the same kind of area of effect. It increases accuracy 30 for allies, but it only gives you the slash attack resistance penetration of 30 for yourself. So I don't like this one as good in general. I don't think it's as good of a buff. And Lucio already has pretty great buffs. But if you need the accuracy or the slash attack resistance penetration or both, then it may still be a viable option for you. Constricting Cleave is one that I often find myself having to turn off just because this range can interfere with buffing, especially given that a lot of Lucio's kit seems to be relatively short range. I think if you were to run the sub job but turn this skill off in particular, his buffing would be so much better than with it turned on. That's just my general observation with that. Lupine Rend, this is a really good PvE skill. Especially looking at his kit here. Unlike regular Lucio, this guy's not going to be a big chainer. He's not going to be building big chains. So the fact that this is only chaining skill 2 hit, 165 mods, is going to do pretty good damage. This is good mid chain. It's also fairly low AP, so you can keep using this over and over again in PvE big fights, and it's really going to build up chains and do a good bit of damage. That being said, there's a lot better chaining since this came out. the thing is, Lucio doesn't have access, this Lucio doesn't have access to any of it, particularly, so. You may need something like Looping Rend to help you out. And then, well, you've been watching this video long enough. Oh, was it? I think I was talking about this with my Folka review, but the decreased attack and magic is going to be based on your base stats. Now, characters are very heavily modified from their base stats in their attacking stats. You know, you've got their equipment, you've got the trust runes, you've got the trust stone, you've got the weapon, all of that stuff. In addition to, I think, board stats, maybe even... Actually, I think your reincarnation stats go into your base stats. So heavily reincarnated units actually get a slightly bigger effect from this than others, I believe. But all of this goes to say that while it says 39%, it's 39% of base. And 39% of base is usually probably works out to be around 10% of total. So let's say, for instance, you're going up against a character that has 1700 attack. You hit them with this skill, you're probably going to reduce that to something around 1530, which, hey, you know, it's an improvement in terms of your survivability. But if you were imagining that it's going to knock it down to like 900 and make them only as powerful as, I don't know, like an Engelbert, yeah, that's probably not going to happen with Tiger Maw. That being said, AoE. It's a little sad that he didn't get Twisting Shield Breaker or something like that. That would have been really handy for him. Just giving him another way to remove those survivability skills. Then we get Pugilist. Demon Purger, I think, is the really exciting one here. 210 mod, but also increases its modifier up to 75%. By increasing it 15% each time you receive damage. So if you get hit 5 times, then you will get the full 285% mod, which is basically unparalleled in terms of like raw modifier. That being said, there are a lot of other skills that apply debuffs before doing damage that are more powerful than this. Even at its max power. So I wouldn't think too highly of this skill, because there's a lot of things that it's kind of missing, especially this day and age. However, it is, at the very least, definitely capable of hitting really hard if you can keep your character alive to pump that modifier up. I think Lucio, definitely with his passives, has a lot of potential to get that modifier all the way up to its maximum and do a lot of damage with this. But also, the last part that I haven't mentioned yet, that's especially cool with this high modifier move, is that it's going to absorb 30% of the damage done, which is going to be a lot, and it's going to help your the survivability of your Lucio as well. He already has a skill that can recover HP on KO, but this is really going to help solidify and make that a little bit more consistent. You can also restore 30% of HP, which is a really great way to go for a physical character that probably doesn't have high healing power, probably doesn't have high faith, because unlike most heals, this won't be based in that stuff. You're just going to get a flat 30% of your HP. Really good for a physical unit like this. He can also use Shifting Strike to teleport himself closer to targets. Spirit Breaker. Technically, this could be a 79% attack decrease, but I want you to keep in mind everything that I just said about Tiger Maw. 79%. And this does also kind of increase in the same way as Demon Purger. This is very much the pugilist thing. You need to get punched a bunch. You need to survive a bunch of punches. And if you do that, you're going to be an absolute fucking juggernaut wrecking ball. But even at 79% of base, well, I mean, that's going to be a lot more crippling. So in our example of a character with 1700 attack, this is probably going to be more like 20% reduction of their total attack, which is, well, that's 340. So we're all the way down to 1360 from 1700. That actually is kind of a meaningful debuff. But again, you got to get hit a lot to even get there, and I don't know. I do like both of these sub-jobs a lot, but I hate to say it, they're starting to get a little bit dated. They're certainly not as dated as some sub-jobs, and definitely have ways of being applicable here. And, you know, around the time that they came out, they were some of my favorites. But times have changed. But they will definitely support his incredible main kit quite well. Oh, right. So the enemy KO is going to be 30% of his health, and the enemy KO for AP is going to be 15 AP. Just to clear that up. And then Illuminating Future is, oh my god, is his limit burst. Select up to 3 targets. That's ridiculous. There's only like 2 other skills that have select up to 3 targets on them. And one of them is the most broken in the game. It also is going to Dispel Protect before dealing damage. And it has a 200% modifier. And it's a 2-hit skill. And if that wasn't enough, it decreases CT for targets by 15%. If you're noticing a really strong similarity here between another incredibly broken skill, but in Slash, yeah. This is Stag Impact, basically. This is Slash Stag Impact. It has a very similar range, select 3 targets. It has Dispel Protect, and it may even have a higher modifier, but I think the modifier in Stag Impact is quite high. But I would actually say, I want to just put this out here, even though the first hit of this might, because of the Dispel Protect, might, in some cases, be a bit stronger than Alaya the Alabaster's attack. There are some major downsides here. Also, it does do chaining, which is cool. But there are some major downsides here in that I think Alaya gets like 4 casts of her skill. This is a limit burst, so you only get 1 cast. But also it's a slash attack. And being able to do this with strike damage is ridiculous because A, a lot of characters are weak to strike, and B, not many characters have any resistance or ability to build resistance to strike. Meanwhile, the opposite is basically true of Slash. I'm not saying that Slash characters aren't good or that Slash can't do damage, and this guy definitely has the potential for Slash attack penetration in his passives. So he can certainly get a lot of Slash attack penetration and kind of neutralize Slash attack. And I think a lot of Slash attackers really have to, because the potential to run a lot of Slash resistance is very high and has been very high for a very long time in this game. And it only gets easier with time as well. So, like, this is really the thing that had to mitigate that, you know? So it has the potential to maybe be a better skill than the most broken skill in the game, which, to have even come close is saying something. But even compared to that skill, to Alaya's credit, as the unit that I bring up the most on this channel, I think that this is more defendable. It's really hard to deal with Alaya in a way that I think this will be a little bit easier to deal with, but only a little bit. This is definitely going to be a very powerful limit burst. Next, we're going to talk about Katone, and I'm not really going to talk about the spoiler here. It's here. It is what it is. She has some defense penetration in her master ability. And she has some resistance, some natural resistance to magic damage with high area attack size, which feels like it's... Actually, that targets a lot of mages, actually. I would say that feels like a Helena jab, but... Ooh, it's not just Helena by any means. So, what does Katone get? Striking from the moonlit shadows being her upgraded skill, 12% agility, defense penetration 40, decreased chance of being targeted 5. It's a little bit odd. But I guess kind of from ninja and striking from moonlit shadows, sure. Okay, it's flavorful. I get it. And she is a ninja. Okay, cool. Chance to ignore fatal damage for self when HP is above 70%. Folks, you might remember this as one of the reasons why regular Katone, and also Skahal, maybe more famously, is still an incredibly good unit. This is a really good thing to have, and if she has much healing in her kit, well, it's really going to be incredible. But moving back, I would say this is a great passive. Again, I'm not entirely sure that I get the decreased chance of being targeted in ways other than flavor. I kind of wish that was like slash penetration. But the auto courage on this, that adds so much. I can definitely overlook one of these not being ideal, but yeah. Shinobi's Creed also looks really interesting. I gotta admit, not entirely sure how this is gonna work. But increasing movement 1 for self is probably really good for her. Yeah, let me look over into stats for a second. 3 move, 2 jump. So that would get her to 4 move, 2 jump. So she's going to be very jumpy regardless. Um, 200% chance CT down for self? Like, does that mean that her attacks are going to apply CT down? Like all of them? How does this work? Someone in the comments tell me how Shinobi's Creed works. I genuinely do not understand what this means. Like, I can't. It feels like an incomplete sentence. Upon what? Is what I want to know here. But that seems like it could be really amazing. And then you also have Night Lore. So I was complaining that we don't have the slash attack resistance penetration naturally in her main passive. You could supplement in Night Lore. Counters, we have Breath of Abandon. Ooh. 20% chance to proc is a little bit unfortunate. But if you get this to go off, you increase your CT by 100. And you absorb 30% of the damage dealt on your next attack. Now, I think if you could... man. She could be really good. If this just procced more. I don't even need all that CT. I'm fine with getting less CT. Just make it proc more so I can heal more often. That would be really helpful. Sword Guard, Counter Swing, not really excited for either of those. And I don't know. I think you run Breath of Abandon. I have some misgivings about it as well, in that it doesn't deal damage, and both of those effects are like... I mean, I guess it gets you to that attack faster, so that's good. It feels like two things that really have to work together. It feels really tenuous, in a way. Like, it feels unstable. Like, it just doesn't feel like this is going to be consistent enough. But at the same time, I like what it does, and I think when you can get this to go off, and if you could synergize with this, then it could be fairly broken. But also as a strike character, see, if she was a sword character though, like you could run the blood sword on her and that would really solve some of these problems, but we're gonna have to do this with fists. So Stinger, that's gonna allow her to restore CT. This is very similar to Perrine. I think Perrine also has like teleport with this type of skill, but also that's a good bit of CT to recover, and this is a pretty cheap attack. Unfortunately, very low range, but no, it's a strike character. Kind of makes sense. She can increase her accuracy by 30 for self, absorb 30% of damage done for 3 turns for self. Okay, cool. Yes, good. When casting another attack skill, also launch the following skill on target: Fleeting Bloom for 3 turns. Okay, so Fleeting Bloom is going to be 50% non-elemental, non-typed damage. So it's going to be very difficult to resist that, if not basically impossible. Yeah. I mean, it's physical, so it would be mitigated by defense. But I think that would be the only thing that would mitigate it, actually. Oh, hey, look, it's another Restore CT. Okay, cool. Very fast girl. So, here's the thing about this counter as I come back to it. That skill is definitely going to do really well, and that skill does all of the things that this counter does, but better. I would say that skill is more important to her overall build than this counter is. However, running them both together just to increase the chances of having turns where you are A, increasing your CT, and B, absorbing damage, this counter skill might actually be the thing that pushes that over the top in a very good way. So that actually, like I said, it looks like it combos with the rest of your kit. So great, this is great. Will Breaker, decrease strike attack by 60 for 3 turns for targets. Oh, interesting. This is actually a viable strike counter. We haven't seen many of those. The only real like strike counter that we've seen is Soul. So thankfully Willbreaker brings us another strike counter, and with a strike unit. So this would be like 2P and Katone and Alaya. It seemed like it could be a really strong team. You have the strongest strike unit, the absolute ass kicker of Alaya. You have a unit that counters Alaya, so even in mirror matches you would do well. And then you have a character that counters strike in general. You would have a strike hunting strike team. Quite powerful, I think. The strike team to conquer all, like the Highlander strike team. There can be only one. And maybe it's 2P, Katone, and Alaya. Moonwake Blessing reduces physical damage by 50% for 3 times. Also grants following effects upon hit for allies. Proccing in cross-shape AoE. Decrease agility 15% for 3 turns. Nice. Okay. So she can slow people down, basically applying Devitalize. Pretty cool. I'm not sure if that's as good as, like, I hate that everything comes back to Alaya, but applying re-raise removal. But I would say that's pretty cool. Definitely very strong, considering that she's like a unit that has CT manipulation, and especially if you would combine her with other CT manipulation units, and maybe even maybe I'm making now a good case for Perrine. You could really have a really strong CT manipulation strike team, thanks to Moonwake's Blessing. Twin Upsurge gets upgraded to Cleansing Twin Upsurge. You can select up to 2 targets, dispel all buffs, haste, physical, and magical damage increases for target. So the big dispel package, like what we saw with, again, a non-conditional Slate Wiper. 165 mod, which isn't bad. The range on this also is pretty cool. No, it's moderate. It's a very moderate range. When enemy target is killed, automatically cast another skill after attack skill CT up when enemy is KO'd for self. Yay! More CT up. Katone is very fast. New Katone, very fast Katone. Very fast, very dark Katone. Guard Reaver is her job level 25. She's going to break physical barriers for target. 165 mod, not huge, but increased plus 30% hit chance. So that's good. That's going to help shore her up against more evasive units. And it's going to recover her HP, her AP, if her HP is above 50%. So I think that this actually, while that seems like an odd or maybe even annoying condition to have there, and I'm not even necessarily sure that this attack needs it for balance, but I think that it's going to be pretty easy to pull off for her, because you're going to want, as I noted earlier, to keep her HP above 70% so that she has, protection from being bodied by skills. She has that auto courage up. So if you're doing that effectively, if you've built your Katone well for that purpose, it should be pretty easy to keep her HP above 50% as well, which means that Guard Reaver should do its final thing more often. I'd say this is a pretty good skill. Giving her finally the barrier breaker is quite good. That's something that was necessary in her kit. Always welcome when you see it. Also, the increased hit chance is, I think I tend to like this, especially with a character like this, even more often than I like guaranteed hit. Even though guaranteed hit seems like it would be better. And then for the main sub-job, we've got 3 Moon Eclipse, move to target panel, 121 mod, okay range. It's a 3-hit skill though, which is pretty cool. I guess it's good for chaining. Don't hate it. Oh my gosh, Saiga Arts Fleet Footwork. Guess what this does? Well, for one, it does most of Katone's original TMR effect. It would be really cool to give her the whole effect in here. It would give her another source of decrease hate, I guess. But no, it's move, jump +1, restores 300 CT. Do you think they gave this girl enough ways to get CT back? I don't say that as a dig or a complaint. I very much like CT manipulation units. And reading through this kit, like this main kit, I'm a lot more excited for Katone than I thought I would be. The sub-jobs I'm not particularly excited about, though. There is one useful thing in Night. I hate to say this too. Increase max HP, restore HP raised 20% for 3 turns. Okay. That's not terrible. 20% HP increase isn't bad. Although I think increasing your max HP might be not the best thing. Would that make it harder to get to 70% in the future? Although at the same time, like, you don't lose HP when that decreases, so it might be a problem while your max HP was higher, but then when that max HP effect drops off, your percentage is going to go way up. So like if you were at 60% with your max HP increase and then the max HP increase falls off, then suddenly you're at like 70% of your health. So that could be helpful. Increase debuff resistance and for all elements resistance 100%. So you cannot be elementally debuffed for 3 turns after casting Divine Healing. That's okay. I'm not mad at that. Definitely would come in handy against Volca or something. But the thing that actually makes this interesting to me, and those other two, like, look, single target buffs have got to do like 4 good things before I'm excited for them. So that was just the icing on the cake up there. The thing that I'm really excited about for Divine Healing is going to be increased healing power 30% for 3 turns for self, because this is going to make all of the other instances of self-healing in her main kit work better. That being said, do you really want to miss a buffing turn for this, especially with a unit that has so many ways of increasing her movement and high jump, so she's not really going to have trouble navigating harsh terrain? She only is, because of this, she's only going to get so many turns to buff herself, and despite the fact that I think that there's actually some benefit to increasing her healing power and maybe some of the other things that are here, I feel like with a character like this, it might actually be a waste to use Divine Healing. Which is a shame, because I absolutely hate everything else in the Knight kit for reasons that should be readily apparent at this point. Except for Speed Break, I guess that's okay, but like, the other issue with all these skills is their incredibly poor range. There's just better strike damage she could be doing at this point. Pierce and missile resistance increase. This, I'm usually not a fan of double resist, but technically speaking, if your strike team doesn't have this, it's actually very likely that you have good Pierce and missile resistances, and this could play incredibly well with a strike team. That being said, though, the one thing that I am actually pretty excited for in here is Drain Rush. So Drain Rush is amazing anytime you get it. It is an incredible slash chaining skill. This, like, fuck it. I didn't think she was a slash unit until I saw this. Now she's a slash chainer. Oh my god. One of the best slash chainers in the game now. Okay, maybe not one of the best, but like, this is a really astoundingly good move. 3 hits, so it builds up a chain, which is going to build up its damage, which is also going to mean that it hits damage caps that are just ridiculous. So once you've built up a chain of like 8 or 9, which is just a couple iterations of Drain Rush, if you have multiple characters that can Drain Rush, you have them all Drain Rush around the same time, and by the 3rd one, you're hitting damage cap for every hit. You're hitting 3 times the damage cap every time you cast the skill until the chain breaks, which is pretty powerful. And it also means that in that context, this is basically restore all your fucking health. Like, I don't know or care how much health you have, you're probably restoring all of it with the skill at that point in the chain. In PvP, it doesn't usually work out quite as good, but I would say pretty easily this is one of the strongest things in her sub-jobs. At least, except for this. These two are pretty nuts. And also, this is also a 3-hit chaining move. So this would actually be able to make her a strike chainer, which might be more the line that you're trying to go with her. And like, there's already plenty of good dark slash chainers, but that also means that you might have a particularly good team that you could work this character in on. So I don't know. I think I actually, as rarely as I say this, I think I actually like her main sub job the best here. If I were to run a second, though, it would almost certainly be Nightblade. Double resist might come in handy, but I think I'm running it just for Drain Rush, honestly. Also, I guess in PvE, either of these subjobs have an AP break or slash drain skill, which could come in incredibly handy against bigger bosses that aren't immune to that type of effect. And then we have Shattered Illusions. You can select up to 2 targets, hit them with strike damage for up to 200% modifier, really big range on this, and you are granted haste after dealing damage for 3 turns, 40% increased speed. And it's a 2-hit skill. That's not bad. I mean, that's a pretty good skill. I think it's definitely going to be pretty good on Katone. It's unfortunate that it didn't really check any of the boxes that I wanted to check for her LB in terms of synergizing with like self-healing or even, I don't know, I'm questioning if I actually want another source of CT up on this character at this point. But it's kind of underwhelming, honestly. Like, just comparing it to Lucio's before this, it's not terribly exciting. But I think Katone has a lot of potential to be a really cheesy character in some ways. But that being said, she's actually costed lower than her regular version. Does that mean that I think that she is a weaker character than her regular version? Because I've been very hesitant to recommend pulling for 70 cost characters. No. Actually, I think this is a pretty good 70 cost character. I think that lately I've kind of been proven wrong on that whole line of thinking. I still don't think that they're the very best characters in the game. For sure, they're 70 cost. They're meant to be budget characters. And they are going to shine their absolute brightest in budget formats. However, I think especially since kind of the point in which we moved into the generation defined by the power of Elia the Alabaster, that really changed the potential power level for 70 cost units, because they aren't releasing 80 cost units anymore. And I mean, 90 cost units do happen. 2P that we talked about at the very beginning of this video was a 90 cost unit. She's quite powerful. I would say that a lot of the 90 cost units are released at this point are probably as powerful as many of the older 100 cost units. You could definitely replace a number of your older 100 cost units with newer 90 cost units and probably be much more powerful. It's a little bit harder to do that with 70 cost because they are kind of explicitly meant to be more limited and more limited in power. But honestly, like, the recent 70 cost characters have felt more like 90 cost characters. Not like, I know I just said 90 cost characters are feeling more like 100 cost characters, but these guys feel quite good. Like, I don't know, like, the power levels have increased so much with the Elia generation that I'm actually really surprised often to see how viable some of these 70 cost units can be. Did I miss the boat on Halloween Lucio? Maybe. Although I will say that, like, I'm not quite as excited for the limited 70 cost units, but I guess limited 70 cost units would probably be the easiest limited units to build. So a lot of the things that I dislike the most about limited units would be least true of 70 costers, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm feeling better about 70 cost units nowadays, or maybe I just think Katone is cool. Not sure. Next up is going to be Shadow Links, because, hey, we're getting Shadow Links and Katone. Cool. Para ninjas. Oh, the fans must be so happy. Another 70 cost unit here, another 3 move 2 jump. And also getting a fairly new sub job as well. Pretty cool. Okay. Her resistances actually feel kinda low. Kinda. relatively. I've just been seeing a lot better recently. Okay. So, defense penetration range 2. Pretty good. Shinobi's Pride 4. Oh. Agility. Reaction block rate. Decrease move by 1. That could be really powerful. It is interesting that this is still a 3-move unit, and that you might want... This is a really interesting counterpoint to Katone, actually. And that they're both 3-move, 2-jump units, one of which increases their move and jump to get to close gaps faster and to be able to punch. The other who decreases their movement, but retains maneuverability in order to stay out of other people's ranges better. Very interesting, these two. And then Axe Knight lore is alright. Chivalric Metal is also a pretty good skill. Though I am often of the opinion that putting defensive or worrying too much about the defenses of an archer, especially, is just the wrong way to think about it. If they take damage, you've done it wrong. You don't want them in the line of fire. I think that decreasing the movement for this girl with Shinobi's Pride is probably going to keep her safer than Chivalric Metal. Editor Jackie here. Despite the fact that I give Shadowlings the Crystalborn a pretty low rating in general in this video, I do think that it is really interesting that we have a decreased movement passive here. Last time we saw this was with the original Alaya, and it was incredibly powerful. Now, things have changed quite a bit, and it's not quite the same. It's still tactically very good, and it's the thing that you really want to have on a ranged unit is to have less and less movement. But you can actually get that down to 1 movement if you were playing long enough back in 2021, it looks like, and probably re-released in 2022 or 2023 as well, I think. If you have the producer's bow tie, you can actually decrease that movement down to all the way down to 1 for 3 turns. One of the issues here, though, is that this is going to increase your chance of being targeted, which is unfortunate. There's also some other weirdness in decreasing your evasion, critical rate, accuracy, dexterity. Most of those things are actually balanced out perfectly by the 77 luck. This is a weird piece of equipment. But if you remember me talking about the bow combo, where you use the producer's bow tie and Yoichi's bow to cancel each other out, but also get you that decreased movement, this is something that Shadowlings the Crystalborn, actually I think that might be her, Crystalborn Archer right there, is going to have access to that even Alaya won't. So while Alaya can wear a bow tie and get down to 1 movement, Shadowlings the Crystalborn will be able to do that while also having, at least starting, with 7 negative hate. This is incredible. Like, this combination of things. There were little pieces of this that were possible before, but I think this particular combo on Shadowlings the Crystalborn may even be, may give her so much more potential than she might have otherwise. And, she is a unique unit for being able to utilize both in-kit movement reduction and this combination. So definitely a unique unit for that reason, and I think I might have underestimated her a little bit, but this combo is also kind of dependent on you having played for a while, and also dependent on you clearing a certain legendary reliquary, so it's not very new player friendly, but I do think this is a really cool combo that you could pull off with her. So if you do get or end up getting Shadowlings the Crystalborn, if you have these 2 pieces of equipment, definitely try out this combo and tell me how it works, because I think 1 movement, even the AI can't screw that up. You still probably want to have a pretty big map, but also, and here's the part that really makes the fact that she's an archer, not a gunner, and Yoichi's bow really important. This is a way of doing that so that even on smaller maps, the negative hate will keep her safe as well for a certain period of time where range can't. And the two of those combine very effectively. So, I mean, with the way that hate works, this is going to mean that it's going to take at least 3 to 4 turns of her attacking people to get her hate positive. So unless everyone else gets murdered before her, which is, you know, if you have a one-off missile unit on your team, that's, I mean, you don't want your team getting murdered, obviously, but that's kind of the order that you want the dominoes to fall, probably. But yeah, I think this combo is really powerful for her and might make her a lot more valuable than I thought she would be. So it's worth noting. Retaliation Arrow. 30% chance to counter all damage. Kind of got an odd range. Really odd range. I don't like that. This has been like my least favorite of these two. Why is it so bad? But she does have Reflex. You're going to use Reflex. Reflex is amazing. 15% of the time, it works all the time. I love that. 15% of the time it works all the time. Okay. She does have pretty good range like archers do on basic attack. Disanimate. So this is kind of like a ranged wave cutter. I'm not that into it. Recovers AP when enemies KO'd. This is kind of like Hien, but look, if I'm comparing it to stuff out of the samurai skill set, it's probably not great. Saiga Arts Water Mastery. Increase water attack 20. Increase physical distance-based resistance. Magic-based. See, again, not a huge fan of the distance-based resistance thing. Mainly because there are some good use cases for it, for sure. But I think there's just other types of resistances that I would rather have that would be more consistent and more helpful. I guess it's better than nothing, but also, while that looks like a lot of text, this skill doesn't do much. I'm not happy with this passive. Arrow of Undoing removes courage, 200% mod, very strong. 100% hit chance as well. So this is a real good one for removing stuff like Elena from the board. You know, you can hit her, and you can get that courage spell. Very good skill, I would say. Crystal's Vivifying Blessing increases single target resistance 20% for 4 turns, neat, per allies. Also, this is a big AoE on this, so it's very cool. Increase critical damage for 4 turns for allies. Again, 20. Grants following effect upon hit for self. Decrease chain resistance. Ooh. And finally, restores AP by 15. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's... I'm not as excited about this one, guys. This isn't... I don't know. The range on this, or not the range, but the AoE pattern on this one slightly changes. I like that. It's not bad. These ranges are weird for me, though. I don't know how I feel about that. Also, this effect does something that is unknown to wotv calc, which is unfortunate, because I haven't seen this character. I'm not really sure what anti-innervation bombardment does either, so that's kind of unfortunate. But also, like, what do you mean effect not translated? This is English. This is the English side. Translated from what? And then for the job level 25, we have Twin Curse Shot. Select up to 2 targets. Okay. Starting off strong here. Modifier is 165. Spell buffs, haste, physical, magical damage increase, decrease reflect rate 50%. nullify physical damage for 3 turns for a target. Nullify physical damage. Magical. What? You turn their damage off? Is that... That's a thing? For 3 turns. I don't... This could be really good. I am deeply confused by what this actually does, and if it actually is a reflect thing, why is it on this character? This isn't a mage. She doesn't have any way of... This does nothing for her. I mean, maybe it does something for the rest of your water team, since there's a lot of mages for water, but what? And 50... Why 50%? Why not 100%? Why not dispel reflect? If you're going to do something this off on this character, why not that? Why this? Unless this does something that I just don't understand. But also, like, I get what Nullify Haste is. Actually, let me not highlight that. It's got to be like Nullify Physical Damage Increase. But the increase isn't in here, because if you're just shutting off people's ability to do damage, that seems broken. I mean, it seems powerful, but it seems really broken. It does not scale well with other defensive abilities here. So, like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I haven't liked this character so far for the most part. And maybe it would take something that's broken to make me like her, but that also doesn't feel balanced. Like, a bad character with a broken skill isn't balanced. It's just being unstable in 2 directions. I don't know. So I don't know that I even understand what's going on here. Okay, so for the main sub job, we've got Heavy Volley. Chance to inflict slow. 2 hits. Not bad. Shadowless Trinity. Chaining move. Not excited. Sharpshoot has 100% hit chance. Mega Charge is also really cool. Mega Charge is very helpful in PvE. In general, single target resistance decrease of 25 is very powerful. Most especially against like raid bosses, that type of stuff. People are going to stay around long enough that you can really violate this for a full 3 turns. That's where you're going to get the most benefit out of this. It's also a 220 mod, which is pretty nuts. I didn't realize this skill hit this fucking hard. This actually is a problem. I know, all of this sounds great, but let's say... I don't know. Let's say you could actually use Shadowless Trinity and Mega Charge, right? And you're in a PvE thing, and you're running it on auto, and you want to open with Mega Charge. You want to reduce that single target resistance because, you know, this is a single target attack. The rest of your team's using single target attacks. This is going to really ramp up the damage, as will the chain. You want your character to be able to break and then chain. The thing is, this modifier is just so high that everything else be damned. Even big chain, even theoretically bigger damage from big chain, somehow doesn't work into the calculus. And this may be like a way in which the AI thinks about damage poorly, but the downside to using this in manual is often that your character will use it the first 3 attacks they can possibly get, because until this skill is gone, it's technically the strongest thing in their kit. Then we have Axonite. Enduring Formation. 20 defense, not super excited about it. 20 strike resistance, am excited about it for allies, and 40 elemental chain resistance for allies. That is actually pretty good, and a good way of dealing with strike. I guess earlier in the video I said that with 2P there weren't that many ways of dealing with strike, and that it's, or maybe I said that with Katone. I think it was with Katone. There aren't that many ways of dealing with strike. I had actually forgotten about this. This is Grifford's job, and it has been offered a couple times as a sub job. I'm not sure how many characters have actually gotten Enduring Formation itself, but I'm pretty sure Grifford has it. And that makes at least one other character that's good at dealing with strike. There's not a... Well, there's Kamral now, and he is very good. But there's not that many, like, fire strike units that can really deal with that. Which is a little bit more unfortunate, which is good for an ice unit, but a little bit more unfortunate for a water unit with this type of thing. Especially, like, the strongest, again, like, you're not necessarily running fire in strike, so this skill on Shadow Links doesn't necessarily line up with anyone to pick on except for Kamral, who's already a low cost unit and probably easy enough to pick on. But also a lot of strike units are going to have a certain amount of missile resistance often, which is really going to be a problem for Shadow Links as well. But yeah, I guess technically maybe on another character this is a really strong buff, but I'm not sure it works here, unfortunately. Knight's Remedy, increase 20% HP, or restore 20% HP, and this is going to be, like, again, something that's going to be good on a physical unit is a flat increase and not something that's going to be modified by healing power, faith, any of that stuff. It's also going to dispel poison, frostbite, blind, silence, paralyze, mobilize for self. Frostbite, I guess, paralyzed, maybe even blind could be real trouble for her, but like, I'm not seeing sleep or stun. Those are both really big right now. I mean, again, I guess paralyze is pretty important in here, but yeah, I'm not seeing a huge reason to run this. And unlike Katone, she doesn't benefit as much from self-healing. Like, everybody wants to stay in the game, but, like, also, if an archer is taking damage, having them heal themselves is probably just going to ensure that they die on the following turn. I mean, archers have a lot of problems. That's also another thing that, just generally speaking, is making it really hard for me to recommend this character. I did not expect to have this visceral of a feeling about her not being good. I really wanted to like your Shadow Links, god damn it. Well, I guess I still like the original Your Shadow Links. This version is just not cutting it for me. Reduced counter chance, 100%, 3 turns. 121 mod, range. Shifting smash, teleport, damage, AoE. So kind of like, this reminds me of Tifa's skill that does the same thing, Overpower. And it increases their AP consumption by 50% for 3 turns. Not bad. Interesting. And then Axeman's Ward reduces physical damage taken by 7,500 HP, increases attack and agility for 3 turns. Now, okay, I want to back up. I've talked a bit of shit, and I actually think Axeman's Ward is a pretty smart move on this character. Mainly because, well, archers and rangers, as I've alluded to before, just do not take damage well. I've never seen one that was good at taking damage, and I'm not sure I'd want to, because I think that might be a little bit broken. They have extra turns that they can hit you when you can't hit them, that they're going to use to take you down. That's how they work. That's how these ranged units are supposed to work. Building them up to be a brick wall doesn't really make sense from a design standpoint either. So, one of the ways that you actually could mitigate this is by giving them a sizable HP barrier. Now, this is only going to work for physical damage, unfortunately, but if you can get... It's going to be really hard to do, like, 1,500 damage to this character in one hit. This might give you another turn that you can stay alive and finish somebody off. Also increases your attack and agility is pretty cool. But this really does nothing against magic, and while it helps and is a defensive strategy that I think actually does work for archers, I don't think it's enough to really save my opinion of this character overall. So let's see if the Limit Burst do what it do. This is your last chance, Shadow Links. The range and AoE on this are decent. Decrease AoE resistance 50 times. Oh my god. For 3 turns. For targets. 200 mod. Also reduces physical and magical damage for them for 3 turns. By 20%. That's pretty powerful. That has big offensive power because that AoE resistance is absolutely nothing to sneeze at. There's range, there's AoE. But then it's also going to reduce their physical and magical damage, which by a pretty significant amount. Like, I would say that's pretty cool. And is absolutely another thing that makes me think that this doesn't work the way that it's advertised, or it would be stronger than the LB. I guess this is nullified physical damage or magical damage increase, and somebody just didn't get the memo and put it on the board. Alright. So now we're getting into our future units, and what? Do I want to know what kind of name they gave him? Will this be spoilers? I'll cut it out if so, I guess. Rolling Crystal Blade Dario, apparently. Okay. Maybe it's Rolling Crystal, I don't know. I don't know if that's how that works. That'd be a 100 cost wind unit. You are Dario. Here we go. Rising from the grave in another timeline to offer us shell for self and a chance to apply silence for 3 turns. Wow. You know, that could be really good for anti-magic. That's just basically a really strong anti-magic skill. I'm not sure that I like that it only targets one person, and that some of the other stats on the armor are what they are, and that it's an armor, all of that. I looked at this, and it looked like glinting armor, and I was like, wow, can we bring some of your father's glory back in terms of the TMR? And I just don't think this does it. Maybe it shouldn't. Maybe glinting armor is just too strong and shouldn't ever be repeated. Editor Fox here again. So I've been working on this video for a little while. It is a long one, and I wanted to make sure that everything I was saying made sense, so I've been kind of double checking it and all of that stuff. And in rewatching this, I'm realizing just how, like, this would have been really good in his kit. This would be really cool to see on a specifically anti-magic tank. But actually, and I guess, you know, putting it on an armor, like a heavy armor type, does limit the characters that can run this, but look, this game already has a terrible physical magical balance. The dominating meta is almost always physical, or 2 out of 3 physical. There might be like a strong magic unit that gets used, but like, even think about the black-robed Helena's supremacy. She was running alongside Duan and alongside Knight of Ruin Stern. So she was still running alongside 2 physical units. It wasn't like there were multiple black dark mages that people were using at that time. It was still just one magical unit. And it doesn't seem like in most cases that this game wants to push the meta more magical. And it just feels like the ability to put this effect on any unit that can carry heavy armor is just another way of keeping the mages down. Like, this feels like discrimination against mages. Again, I would be perfectly fine if one character had this ability, But the fact that you can put it on anyone with heavy armor, I actually do find kind of irritating. That being said, if you want a really strong piece of anti-magic kit, this feels like it's going to do the thing, and do the thing well into the future, and maybe be the best at doing the thing it does. And I think I got caught up in looking at this and saying, hey, that looks a lot like glinting armor. I wonder if it does the glinting armor things, and it doesn't. But what it actually does is maybe even more absurd in some ways. Is this going to be broken in all situations in the same way that glinting armor is? No. Is it going to be useful? Maybe, but does it absolutely do terrible things against magic teams? Absolutely. And look, I'm almost tempted to pull this guy just to get this armor for my teams that are really good against physical, just to put this on somebody. Now they're good against physical and magic. I don't know. This does seem like a really strong effect. We've got some pretty major resistances here. 15% resistance to strike, 20% resistance to trash, 25% resistance to magic. That's really good. 50% resistance to sleep also is going to make him good against Helena. Specifically. Looking at the upgraded skill, we've got 12 Spirit, which makes sense for him. Single target resistance of 12, which is something that I genuinely like a lot better. I think it's a lot more applicable, especially in a less magical meta. I mean, there is magic sneaking in more and more from the periphery, but I think there's still mainly a physical meta going on. Debuff effect weakening of 30%. And increases chance of being targeted by 5. So, it looks like we have a tank here, although Initial Hate, while it is incredibly powerful, while it is kind of its own beast, and just throws a monkey wrench in the AI of your opponents, it makes their team not work the way they intended it to, basically. However, what you should also understand about this is that if we don't find another hate skill in this character's kit, then unfortunately, that's going to mean that he's going to lose hate relatively quickly into the fight, which means he won't function as a proper tank. But maybe it's too soon to be making that judgment. We also have a move 1 and agility 12% skill. Those are always good. I always appreciate those when you can get them. Also a spirit penetration skill that comes with 12 defense. I'm not as excited about the 12 defense, but the spirit penetration is good potentially. Although I'm not really sure that he's the character that wants that. We'll see. He might be more of a tank than a damage dealer. Chance to counter all damage, restores HP by 20%. Nice. Since that is fixed, though, I've been... Wait. Yeah, no, he has spirit penetration. All right, he's a magical character. Yep, definitely magical. It actually seems like a bit of a negative. While I was saying like fixed HP healing is really good on physical units, it might not be great on Dario because I think that fixedness gets around the fact that he's going to be a high faith and maybe high healing mod unit. Magical evasion, 20% chance. I'm not as excited about that. The final counter, I do kind of like this one. 30% chance to counter all damage. Decreases chance of being targeted by 1. Oh, only 1. But it increases area resistance by 40 for 1 turn. Only 1 turn, unfortunately, but yeah, it's a pretty big buff. That being said, though, I think as a tank, he's probably going to want that main passive. I think most of the other stuff is not nearly as good as that. Ooh, boy, that's... Wow. So his main, his basic skill is not huge. They never are. But decrease healing power 70%. Wow, that is a big modifier. Let's see. His other basic skill is auto revive, and it also gives him an additional counter. Chance to counter physical damage 50%, reduces the physical damage taken 30%. That is very permissive. Again, we're in a more physical meta, so that's going to be more than 50% of the damage you're likely to take. And more than 50% chance of proccing is also quite good. And then to reduce 30% of that damage as well is also quite good. Also, as you can see, this guy seems to get a lot of extra things, but we'll see how those work out. They seem to all be coming from this. Hold on, there's an upgraded version. Reduces magic damage taken 7,500 HP. So huge magical damage barrier there. Reduce physical damage taken larger the area attack size. Also same effect for magic. So this is area attack size reduction. Damage reduction, I guess. Another untranslated effect. And then we get all of the other skills. And that, I guess, is all of these. Yes, because that one's attached to another. Yep. So it's all of these resistances. So it is going to give magical, poison, sleep, and slow resistance of 50% to all allies. So poison is going to help with a wide variety of things. Sleep, another one that's really going to help us with Helena. It's also going to push his sleep resistance super high. That's going to make him basically unsleepable. Again, another way that as a magically focused tank, he's going to be able to deal with one of the biggest non-limited magical problems in the game right now, which is Helena. Okay, so we have a piercing skill, 200 mod, decreases bravery. So how piercing works is if your target is back here and there's a character in one of these two spaces, you will hit both. That's how piercing works. It doesn't, I know that piercing is a damage type. This is not doing piercing. Oh, wait, actually it is doing piercing damage. My bad. This is pierce damage. This is pierce damage with piercing. Okay. It doesn't always work out that way. I'm just trying to point that out. But in this particular case, it does. The next skill gets an upgrade, 165 mod, 100% hit chance, absorbs 30% of the damage done, casts another skill automatically for self, and increases spirit by 40 for 1 turn. So this is actually really similar to one of MR Dario's skills, although I think with a shorter range. That's pretty short range. And the thing that's going to do is restore 25% of HP for ally and increase chance of being targeted 4 for self, which is not a lot. It's looking like that is his only way of generating hate other than his initial hate. And 3 casts, it is a 3-hit skill, which is cool. But with only 3 casts of this and it only doing 4, which isn't a lot, that's only going to be 2 attacks, basically. That's going to keep him targeted for 2 more attacks. And in 3v3, you can easily go through 2 attacks without everyone on the opposing side getting a turn. So blap blap where you want it to go, and then blap on somebody else before Dario even gets a turn to maybe refresh this. So it's going to leave your... So I think this is probably going to mean that he's going to be a slightly inconsistent unit as a tank. And he doesn't really have what you would want for him to be a damage dealer either, unfortunately. At least from the looks of it. But I do really like this skill. Like, quite a bit. I do think that this is probably one of the best and most important skills in his kit. It's very good for him. Very good for chaining as well. So I think this is going to be a very good PvE skill, too. Final skill, job level 25, is going to be select up to 2 targets, dispel, protect, and shell. And then 165 mod that is going to decrease AP by 20. This has a pretty decent range, has 3 potential casts. Protect isn't going to be relevant for him, but it may be relevant for the rest of your win team. So he's really kind of... It's unselfish of him. Let's put it that way. It is good of him to think about his allies in such a way. Very good leaderly disposition. For his main sub-job, we have a piercing attack with a 165 mod that has a 25% chance to inflict disable. It is very close range and basically has piercing. It's also a 2-hit skill, which isn't bad. And I also want to point out that Wind is having a really good time of piercing right now. I think piercing Wind teams, especially with Veritas of the Winds, is particularly good. So giving him a couple of options for pierce chaining, especially a chaining skill such as this, could be really cool on such a team. And then finally, and also kind of stealing a bit from MR Helena here. I used to run MR Helena and MR Dario on a team together and beat people's UR Earth teams with it. One of the things that Helena was bringing to the field was a buff very much like this. Increase wind, earth, and light resistance by 25 for 3 turns. Very strong. This AoE pattern is a bit smaller than I was hoping it would be. And in terms of 3 tri-elemental resistance skills, we've been seeing these since Charlotte. I think they can be good in certain situations, and I've definitely used them, especially with, you know, again, my MR Win team used these type of effects to massive effect to just stomp on Earth teams. But this is something we've been seeing for a while. This doesn't even feel as good as some of the older versions. I just don't particularly like this. I think if you're running the sub job, it's more to have an additional piercing skill, but actually looking below here into Red Mage, you might not even run it for that. Red Mage is a pretty old skill. I don't think I'd run Cura. I'm not even sure what this is. And I'm not sure it's important. Oh, wait. This has got to be like Aurora. Asuna. Sleep. No, this is cool. But you do finally get down here. This skill doesn't have the biggest modifier, although 144, it certainly has gotten bigger. It is a 2-hit skill, which is pretty cool. It's going to break spirit by 38, which is quite a bit. Like, a character with 100 spirit that gets hit by this is going to go down to 62. That is quite the impact. It's also going to dispel auto revive before dealing damage, and I don't have to tell you how strong that is. I think this is probably even more so than the disable skill in the main sub job. This is probably the way you want to go, just because it additionally gives you access to re-raise removal, which can be quite good all by itself. Final sub job is Grimoire Keeper. First buff gives you decrease AP on hit, at least if targets have one of the following effects. Protect. If the target have one or more follow effects, protect, grant protect. If they have protect, increase debuff resistance. If they have protect. I always find it weird the way that these are worded because it makes it sound like you have to have protect to get protect, but it doesn't work that way. This skill should give protect, and then do the other stuff because you also have protect. It's just seems to be a really weird way of wording it. I think you already know how I feel about this skill. It's just kind of blah. Healing, yeah, I guess that's okay. You're a mage, so this type of heal, this is kind of like Curaga power. It's not bad. Chance to inflict confusion. This skill is pretty interesting. It is technically an AoE skill, not the best range, but it is uncounterable. And 165 mod ain't bad, and the guaranteed hit is very helpful here. I know it's not the biggest, I said it is technically AoE, but if you can line up more than one, you do have the possibility of lining up more than one evasion character with this, and that becomes very important in some evasion matchups. And then finally we've got the LB. Increase slash attack resistance penetration by 50 for self. Does that expire? Is there an expiration for that? It doesn't say that ends. Maybe it's just for this attack. That probably makes more sense, since that is kind of an irregular number for them to throw in there. As you notice, it does tend to top out at 40 when it's a long-term buff. So increasing your slash resistance penetration to penetrate half of their slash attack resistance is pretty good. 200% modifier after that, and then a 67% chance to inflict berserk, and it's going to increase your critical evasion by 60. So the berserk specifically, this is a very high chance of inflicting berserk, especially if you're playing to Dario's strengths and you're playing him against other magic characters. Berserk is basically... Berserk ruins healers. Berserk ruins mages because it forces them, typically. There are some mage classes that have magically based basic attacks that are quite powerful even when berserked. But for most mages, they just aren't going to be able to do damage. They aren't going to have access to all the cool stuff in their kit, and this isn't going to go away for a while. So, like, Berserk can really break mages, but I don't know. It's a single target skill. I wish you could Berserk more people at once, I guess. And he can only do this once, so, like, even best case scenario, if he berserks the wrong person on the team, you may have kind of wasted the skill in a way. Like, you really want this landing on someone's mage or something. So I think there's a lot of things in here that are quite strong. I'm really excited to see this Dario and the way that he has been and his abilities have been hyped up in both the current storyline, in which he is currently dead and they're still talking about how incredibly strong he was, and the another storyline in which he is proving to be an absolute powerhouse. Even though I'm not even like currently in the part where he's really powerhousing it out, I have no doubt that this guy is going to be quite strong and definitely a great anti-magic character. The issue I have, though, I mean, there are some what feel like slight red flags within his kit. Nowhere near as bad as Shadow Link's. But in some ways, being an anti-magic character is a little bit of a red flag. It is good that he is specified to be really good against a specific mage that is very powerful right now, so you will get some use out of him, but I would say that this game leans, surprisingly, you would think Final Fantasy would be way more magic heavy, but no, we like big sword boys, actually. And so it tends to be a more physically based meta most of the time. There are times when very powerful mages, almost by being the exception, come in and dominate, and Helen is currently doing that right now, but there are some ways in which Dario's shelf life may not be the very best because of his honing in on magic and status resistance in some cases. I still think that he's going to be quite good, though, and I think that, I mean, really, with the exception of Shadow Links, his character's been quite good. So, that brings me to, oh my gosh, we're getting a Final Fantasy XIII recollaboration. I actually just found out about this by opening wotv. Still haven't seen a video on it or anything. Disabling CT up, and especially giving it to your allies, could be interesting in niche scenarios, but not super excited about it. I'm glad that she's getting AoE resistance. Also, pierce attack resistance penetration is interesting too. She is a 90 cost unit, so she may not be as powerful as some others, but she does have room to be plenty good. Especially the 4-jump. 4-jump is interesting, but she is a Dragoon type character, so that makes perfect sense for her. Even more jump than she has movement. Her elemental resistances are pretty basic. Her damage resistance is alright. She is notably weak to strike, which is going to be a bit of a problem. I think the people that like Uriel and 2P are the ones that are really going to violate this weakness the best. But it is a little unfortunate. Although, I guess there are probably worse elements to be weak to strike in. Oh, also, stun resistance. It's going to be interesting against Vivi. And others, but mostly Vivi. I don't like that condition. I don't like that condition. It seems really easy to get additional physical attack of like 5 or 10%. I don't think it's worth it to put this condition on it to get another 5%. This is not good to me. No. Sorry, thank you. No, thank you. Any one of these three, or any two of these three, I guess, would probably be my preferred passives for her, but having a hard time picking one at the moment, and maybe it's just because I haven't seen the rest of her kit yet. This is boring. She does not have good counters. Sorry folks. Sorry, Fang fans. Wow. Her basic attack has piercing and absorbs 100% of the HP it damages, which is always pretty neat. It is a very low modifier, but that's also a very high modifier. It's 100% healing and 100% drain. It's pretty good. She has Courage AP 20, which is a slight upgrade to the Martialist Courage skill, which gives him AP 10. Not bad, but honestly, I was looking for better, I would think. Oh no, untranslated effects. No. This move has massive range, though. Good modifier. Good AoE, but great range. Love to know what that does. If you know, let me know in the comments. Physical barrier of 7,500 HP, 40% attack increase for allies, 25% agility increase for allies, even better. Oh, single target resistance 25 for allies, Action block rate 50% for 4 turns for self. And actually, all of these are 4 turns. I didn't announce that any of them were 4 turns, but they're all 4 turns, which is good. Very good. It's good to get that extra turn in there. It's very, very helpful. I know it seems like a very small increase in some ways, but it's very, very helpful because of how unlikely characters are to reapply buffs. Break physical barrier for target. Decrease defense by 80 for just this cast for target. So basically, we'll ignore most of their defense. Even if you have no defense penetration, if you do, it will probably ignore basically all of it. 200% mod and piercing. The range here is kind of sad, but you know, that's how piercing skills work. Piercing skills would be a little bit more broken if their range wasn't nerfed a bit. And also, this is a very strong one that's like very anti-tank, and I'm into it. Final skill, job level 25 gets an upgrade. That's always good because those are usually quite powerful to begin with, and they only get stronger when you upgrade them. You can select up to 2 targets. We're starting off amazing. Decrease pierce resistance for 3 turns, 25% before dealing damage. Very good. Usually not a thing that people have much of, but I appreciate seeing it nonetheless. 165 mod, plus 30% hit chance, and when enemy target is killed, automatically cast another skill. Restore 30% HP. Okay. 30% heal. It seems like a lot of kanji to tell me it's a 30% heal. With her main sub job, I'm going to be getting a 165 mod, piercing, 25% chance to inflict slow, 50% reduced speed for 3 turns. If the target has one of the following effects, slow, it's going to decrease chain resistance for 40%. And then a cross shape 40% heal for allies. That's actually pretty strong. Like I said, these fixed type heals on physical units are pretty good, and anytime you can get like above 30% on one of these, that's also pretty good. So against AoE, she just had to get quite close to things to heal them, which can be unfortunate, especially with AoE damage dealers, but it's still alright. Moving on to, I think this is Gernsback's job. 40% attack for self, 20% or 20 defense for self, and protect. Okay. 141 mod that absorbs the damage done. 100% absorb. This is basically her main skill but upgraded. I think if I was running this job, I'd probably turn off her main skill in favor of this one. It's actually less AP as well. So higher mod, less AP. I think, was there another effect on that though? It had piercing. Yeah, I can sacrifice the piercing, that's fine. 165 mod on the next skill, it's got this odd 6-panel box that they use for piercing sometimes. 25% chance to inflict stun for 1 turn though is pretty cool. Not terrible. She's not necessarily a higher faith unit from what I'm seeing, but that's not bad. Increase move 1 and increase agility 25% for 3 turns. I'm used to seeing those two together as a passive, and it's always worth equipping, so I think it's very likely that this is also a good buff for her as well. Especially since I remember, I think this is one of the ones that had like a buff that just didn't do much for me. No, actually. She only has 1 buff, which is odd. Usually you see 2. So yeah, you could work this into a rotation for her pretty easily. I do like her other buff, like I would want her to use both. And maybe this one a lot less than the other, but not bad. Grant the following effect upon hit for allies: 15%, negative 15% pierce resistance for 3 turns. So on a full piercing team, this effect could be pretty cool. It also restores 20 AP for herself and increases her single target resistance for 3 turns by 25, which is also pretty good. Yeah, and it really shows that is one of the newer sub-jobs, and quite a strong one at that, because, hey, it works. And then for operative, I guess draining Rend, in that it potentially has a big AoE, although it's a weird AoE, very close range AoE. Could maybe do more damage and heal more than some of the other self-healing skills, but I find it interesting how it's like trying to guarantee you're going to get a couple self-healing skills with this guy. Very big on the self-heal, or this gal, actually. She's very big on self-healing, apparently. She can... Ooh, I don't like this skill. This skill, it has too much range. That's what it is. I would rather my units buff than debuff, and this is going to eat up all of your buffing turns. It really will. Especially on smaller maps, you'll never buff. And then the final thing for this, decrease counter chance 100 for 3 turns. You also decrease it another 40% if you've been dealt damage twice. 140? I don't understand. Decrease slash resistance. Oh yes, this is a slash skill, right? This is a slash job. What am I thinking? Yes, it doesn't make much sense on her, but it does decrease slash resistance for target for 3 turns. And decreases... Huh? That doesn't even make sense attached to that. 205 mod. Powerful. Kind of an awkward, very, very awkward range, though. 65% chance to poison. I definitely don't think that you want to decrease the chance of that by 20% every time you've dealt damage. That would be terrible. I'm just going to assume that, like, this and this are goofs, because they don't make sense. And I really hate to say this. Well, no, I can say this in a fair and balanced way. But it seems like in some ways, compared to what it was at least a year ago, wotv calc has kind of gone downhill. And I don't say this to pick on Bismarck or the team or any of the people who support wotv calc, because, dear God, it's been the best tool that we have had for War of the Visions in the last 4 years. Like, it's genuinely the best. I mean, shout out to Bismarck, shout out to the team at wotv calc, you're amazing. But, and look, Square Enix, you could take note of this and actually do this better. Like, give us the same depth of information, layout, searchability. You could do this. You could absolutely do this, and it would solve a lot of the problems that I think wotv calc is having. Although it would also replace them, which might not be what they want. But for folks like myself who appreciate wotv calc, then don't forget that they do take donations. They do take and run on donations. And they do need them. This takes not only people working, but server time. That kind of thing. Not all that costs money, folks. So if you can support wotv Calc for $1 or $2, I'm sure it's going to go a long way. And I appreciate you so much for doing it, because it helps make this tool better for me and for all of you as well. So thank you. If you did, if you will, if you can, thank you so much. Finally, for our last unit, we have the final limit burst of the episode. Decrease defense penetration 40 by 3 turns. Got a very good range on this. Very good range. 200% mod. Increase the modifier by 60% if the target have at least one of the following effects. Defense, I guess. So I guess what this is saying here is that it's going to penetrate your defense, but also it's going to punish you for thinking that you could defend against it. How dare you? I think this means that you have to actually use a buff that increases your defense. It can't just be like characters have defense, because everything has defense these days. But I think it's actually for characters that explicitly buff their defense. That being said, I'm just kind of implying that that's the way it works based on my experience of this game over the last 4 years and literally 3 letters on the screen in front of me. It's not the ideal way to come to a conclusion, and I'm not super happy about it, but it is what it is, and we are where we are. So, with all of that being said, let me back up a little bit. Because I want to say in general that I really like a couple of these characters. I think probably my very, very, very favorite of them was probably Katone, oddly enough. Although I think that Lucio is also going to be quite powerful, but no, I don't think there's a but there. I think he's a quite powerful unit. I think there's a lot of ways that he is a very interesting and powerful unit, and I think that there's a lot of like interesting power creep within his kit. Is he super game-breaking, best ever, must-have? Maybe not, but he is certainly a very powerful upgrade for light. And I also think that Katone is just really, really good, even for her cost. I just really like her as a unit. I think she's quite powerful. And, you know, I think Dario's probably going to be pretty good too, and definitely going to find synergy with Pierce teams for the moment. And I also think Fang is going to be pretty good with Pierce teams as well, and maybe these two will even kind of work together in a fun way. But not really as sure about that. But it is good to see 13 getting a rerun, even though it's like probably the Final Fantasy that no one cared. I don't know. I'm sure Umbra Rays feels a certain way about Lightning, but at least we got that upgrade with Pixel Remaster. Anyways, it's not unwelcome. I am happy to see Fang join the party, even if it wasn't from a Final Fantasy game that I was super excited about. Although, on the other hand, though, and again, I'm just looking at what's on screen here, and I'm not sure that this might not be the case, but like, there were 3 13 games. Are we just gonna pretend the other 2 don't exist? Which I'm not super mad at, although I really want the version of Lightning from 13.3, Lightning Returns. But look, if they kind of ignored 2 the same way that I did by not playing it, I wouldn't be super concerned with that. But it just seems like they need to be moving through that part of the franchise a little bit faster than revisiting 13. I don't know. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I know this has been a long one, but I had a lot of stuff to cover, and I guess I could break it all up, but it just seemed easier on me, as an editor especially, to just do it all in one and break it up by chapters so that you could kind of figure your way through it. So thank you so much for watching. If you appreciate this level of detail, because I've been trying to be conscientious about explaining some of the more complicated things or some of the things that maybe confused me when I first started playing a little bit more in detail. Instead of assuming that maybe you know these things, that maybe you're newer players, or maybe you want to share this with a newer player that you're trying to get into the game, and they're going to need that kind of detail. So I'm happy to provide it. Just be sure to remember, with longer videos like this, there's going to be chapters, hopefully. If not, bug me about it, I'll add them. It's not super hard, but sometimes I do forget to do it. It is what it is. Check out the description below. There's going to be a link in there that's going to lead to even more Jackie Fox stuff, including books that I've written, things such as that. I'd really appreciate it if you buy a book to help support the channel, but also you could donate on Ko-fi or Patreon or something like that. If you're sitting here at the end of a multi-hour video on new characters in Final Fantasy Brave Exvius War of the Visions, then maybe you do get enough value out of this channel that you could afford to donate a little bit of some of your hard-earned money to help support me and my family. I would really appreciate it. And with all that being said, I guess I'll see you in the next one.